Hello, hello. Happy New Year. I don't know if that's actually people are still saying that it's quite late in the month, but maybe we'll go with Happy January. Welcome to the first event for Green Tech Southwest of 2022. Hope it's a good one. I believe it will be. So for those of you who have been here before, you'll know this next bit, and you'll know this sort of general housekeeping that I take people through. So as I say, please feel free to just get your cup of tea, get yourself settled, get yourself comfy. But if those of you who are new, you're in the right place. And even if you're not, I definitely would recommend staying, as we've got a really awesome event for you today. So just to like obviously go through a little bit of what we're all about, and just what this little section is. So we obviously would love to have done our events in person, but we're really enjoying having the opportunity to have the events online. So what we do like to do to make it a little bit more engaging, a little bit more interactive, is if you could introduce yourself and get a bit of a chat going in the comment section, as we do love a lively feed. So yeah, I'll start. My name's Ellen. I'm one of the co-founders of Green Tech Southwest. And you'll be introduced to my co-founders a bit later on, but yeah, that's just a bit about me. So yeah, if you're already here, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat section. What you're having for lunch? Is it your first time? Is it where is this, what exactly in today's event are you looking forward to, etc. We love to hear it all. So yeah, as you know, we'll be hearing from Voy and TripShift today, but if you're local to sort of the southwest, and sort of particularly around Bristol, I know that they've been really popular. It'd be good to know if any of you have any experiences with Voy already. I personally am a complete convert. I absolutely love them. So yeah, for me, they've made a massive impact for the better, especially getting up the hills, as we know in Bristol. So yeah, if you have had any experience with them at all, it'd be good to drop that down, as yeah, it'd be good to that little talking point. But yeah, so just in case anyone's popped in the last sort of few minutes, we'll be looking to get started at around past, or no, actually past on the dot. But just as just to get people settled and check your mics and sounds working and everything. I know that there's a lot to always something that goes wrong, isn't there? Just thought I'd introduce you to Green Tech Southwest. So just a few of the, if you are new here, just to sort of navigate, as I know that lots of these streaming platforms have some slight differences, and you're always just like, where was that? So there's a few things which will be popping up throughout the talk. For example, we have a few polls that go up throughout the talk, just because we think it's a good idea to sort of have an idea of what what you're familiar with already, or your knowledge on the subject, and we will share them in sort of roundup that we do at the end. So they'll pop up. You won't be able to see anything now, but they'll pop up sort of below your screen there throughout the talk. So yeah, if you fancy, have a little look at those and let us know what you think. Also, there's an ask a question section. So we do make sure that we sort of constantly sieving the sort of chat feed and stuff to make sure any questions there. But if there is any questions that you could ask the speakers, it'd be great if you can pop that down in the ask a question section, which again is just to the bottom of your screen, as it does help. It does help us sort of keep it neat and tidy towards the end and make sure that your questions get answered. Equally, there's upvote and an upvoting option. It's a part of the ask a question section, which is really useful if we're running out of time and we've got a lot of questions to get through. We want to make sure that the questions that are sort of most keenly to be answered get answered or get asked, basically. So if you have got a question that's specifically for either Tom or Sebastien, it'd be great if you could also just make that for question for Tom or question for Sebastien, or you never know, you could get a really interesting answer if you left it up for a gamble. But yeah, that would sort of help make get them answered, really. But yeah, like I said, we do go through the chat feed and stuff to make sure that we're not missing anything. So I've seen a few of you starting to introduce yourselves. A few familiar faces. Hi Tim, nice to see you again. Or I'll see your little icon, but you might as well keep it a bit personal like that. And hi David Martin, nice to meet you as well. Thanks for introducing yourselves. Yes, Tim, remember you wanted to do a 60-second intro. I've got a note down here. So yes, we'll definitely be inviting you on screen when that comes around. For those of you who aren't familiar with 60-second intros, they are a little segment we do just before our talks. Just, you know, we're a community event. We want to make sure that you guys get as much out of it as possible. So if you've got any humble bragging to do on a project or a call to action, or if you just, you know, if there's something you think the community would benefit from, you know, just something to share, let us know. You just pop your name down in the comments. A 60-second intro. Hannah will explain a little bit more about it further along, but that means, yeah, we'll be able to invite you on screen, and you can just give 60 seconds of whatever you'd like to share with us. Tim actually, who's just recommended or just nominated himself for a 60-second intro, was actually one of our speakers as well. So it's great. It'd be really interesting to see. Well, very early on we had him, so it'd be great to see what his next venture is. So I'm looking forward to that. Cool. Yeah. So we should be getting started in a few minutes. So yeah, please. As anything pops into your mind, or to say, feel free to pop that in the feed, especially any sort of praise for the speakers and stuff like that. This recording is made live or made available afterwards, so you'll be able to have a little read through. And I've been joined by the wonderful Hannah and the wonderful Mike.
Hello everybody, welcome. Hey, great intro, Ellen. It was very good. It was very smooth. Yeah, so I guess slides, right? Let's get those up. Let's get going. Okay, the clicky button moment. All right, well, let's kick off officially if Mike and Ellen are ready to do so. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today at Green Tech Southwest. You've been listening to the wonderful Ellen Davis do a little preamble warm-up for our meetup today. But now at 12:30, we officially kick off and get started. We'll tell you a little bit more about the group shortly. We won't take long to tell you about ourselves. Because we know we've got quite a few new joiners with us today. So if it's your first time coming to Green Tech Southwest, we really do hope that you get a lot out of our event today. And do please introduce yourselves in the comments. I think a chatty feed is something that a lot of people really enjoy about our events. We certainly get a lot from seeing people introduce themselves, seeing people talking about what they're doing, and people sharing resources and ideas about all sorts of green tech things in the comments as we go. So please don't be shy today. Please do, chat away and let us know who you are and where you're listening in from today. So just a little bit about Green Tech Southwest before we get going. We are very appreciative to be sponsored by AdLib Recruitment, who Mike works for. I'm not sure who we've got from AdLib with us today. Nick is often with us, so Nick, if you're here, as always, we'd just like to extend a very heartfelt thank you for continuing to sponsor and support the group. It's really appreciated. We're also supported by two other organisations, Climate Action Tech and the Future Economy Network. Well, they're called the Future Leap Network, but I believe their website's still the Future Economy Network. And we'll tell you a little bit more about both of those organisations at the end of our talk today. If you are on social media, so are we. We have a Twitter account. You can find us at greentech_swest. Sorry, we couldn't get Green Tech Southwest as our handle. It's already been taken, so we have something slightly less neat. But hopefully you'll figure out it's us. And we're also on LinkedIn as well, and you can find us through the hashtag Green Tech Southwest. And we spend a lot of time in between our meetups sharing content on those media platforms. So if you want to keep in touch or want to sort of, get tabs on what's going on within this field, do follow us and find us there. And if you're on Twitter and you enjoy today's meetup, tell us. It's really nice. Myself, Mike and Ellen are your organisers. I'm going to come on to the next screen. We are volunteer organisers, so we do this because we believe that the Southwest needs a space to talk about green tech, and we do this on a voluntary basis. So it means a lot to us when people tweet or reach out to us on LinkedIn and tell us that they've enjoyed the event, or they've learned something new, or they've made a new connection. So please feel free to do that today. We'd love that. So I'm going to move on to just telling you a little bit more about why Mike, Ellen and myself set up Green Tech Southwest and what our aims are. So as I mentioned, the reason why we started the group was because we believed that the Southwest needed a space to talk about green tech. We tend to focus on digital technology, but we do also look at other forms of technology as well, such as energy. Today we're talking about transport. We've done events on food in the past. We're kind of open to looking at a wide range of things around technology. And really our aim is to share insights and generate discussion about how technology relates to the environment. And we are first and foremost a group formed in the Southwest for the Southwest, but we have an open and inclusive ethos. So wherever you are in the world, whether you're from the Southwest, maybe you've never even been here before, that's absolutely cool. And you're really, really welcome to be here today. And in fact, we're delighted that you've joined us. So wherever you are, a big warm welcome to you from us at Green Tech Southwest. And we really hope that you find today's event insightful and helpful. We do have a code of conduct and a constitution, which we've just dropped into the comments chat feed. Is that over there? I'd never know. Probably over there, that way. Okay, it's over there. So you can have a little look if you want a bit more detail about the group. Really, I mean, the code of conduct is just be nice to people. We all have different levels of knowledge around sustainability and around the climate crisis. We all have different privileges in our lives that may allow us to do more or less than others to take action. We maybe also have, different opinions on subjects, and that's all cool. Diversity is a good thing. If we look at our natural ecosystems, we know that diversity is a really important thing and an important thing for tackling climate change. So we celebrate that, and we want you to celebrate that with us. So yeah, just be kind to each other and understand that a different viewpoint doesn't necessarily constitute a bad thing. Okay, so moving on. We've been running now for what, like 2 years? Mike and Ellen, I think, yeah. So we've had a lot of speakers come through our doors. Here are the speakers that we had up until like summer of last year, I think. I need to refresh this slide, I haven't had a chance. We've had loads of people come through and talk about all sorts of different stuff. And over the summer, we put together a website, greentechsouthwest.org. We were actually able to get the URL we wanted for that, unlike our Twitter account. So this makes sense. greentechsouthwest.org, and on there you can find links to all our past talks. We video them all to the slides, and Ellen will be busy this evening collating everything from today's talks and popping them up on our website. So check that out. Okay, so moving on to our 60-second intros. For those of you that haven't heard of these before, these are community slots, which are a little bit like if we were all in a room together. You might stand up and introduce yourself very briefly, ideally 60 seconds, and tell us about maybe something you're working on, or an initiative perhaps that you've seen of that you think's cool. Maybe you'll ask for help or guidance from someone else, or maybe you'll just share something that you think is cool, or maybe just say hello. This slot is there so we have a diverse range of voices in our sessions. And so quite a few of you, I think, have put your hands up to do 60-second slots today. Mike and Ellen, I think you've been keeping tabs on who's been saying hi, so I'm just going to roll with it. I know that we've got Tim on screen with us at the moment, and Tim is here to do a 60-second intro for us. So hello, Tim, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you, and thanks very much for having me on. Hello, everybody out there. So I'm going to talk to you very briefly about a project of mine, which I really could do with some help with. I'm a digital technologist and creative based here in Bristol. And I talked about a project I didn't buy, which is a university funded project into empowering people to shop sustainably. So my question to you is, have you ever wished you had some help shopping sustainably, or at least trying to shop sustainably? I'm building a platform to do exactly that. It's based about giving you information at the point of purchase on e-commerce sites. And I'm looking for people to, as I say, to help me with this, because it's a labor of love at the moment. We've done a lot of research with university colleagues. I'm basically doing it by myself at the moment. I'm concentrating on fashion because there's a lot of consciousness out there about fashion. There's a lot of interest and awareness about sustainability in relation to buying fashion, particularly in relation to fast fashion. So if you would like at least a conversation about what I'm doing, please do get in touch. I'll put my contact details in the chat. Yes, I'm looking for people to help me do the coding, people to help me do the designing, people to help me think about the community building aspects of the platform, and also the information gathering aspects of the platform. I've got a reasonably advanced prototype at the moment to show people, but I'm really interested in having a conversation with you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. And you were actually one of our very first speakers at Green Tech Southwest, all the way back in February 2020. I think I've got that right. I've lost a year.
Right.
I think most people have.
That's
so,
right.
Tim, please do drop in the comments your contact details and let people know how they can get in contact with you about that.
I will do.
All right, lovely.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Cheers.
Pleasure. Great to have you.
Bye.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, so who have we got next up? Michael, Ellen, yeah.
So I think we've got Matt.
Oh, we've got Matt. Fantastic, Matt. Welcome. Hello. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me. Long-time listener, first-time contributor, although I don't think that's actually true. Just very quickly, I am working on a Department for Education pilot project looking at the skills needs of the future in advanced engineering and, strangely, social care. One of the elements we are looking at is how these sectors are planning to decarbonize and are mitigating climate risks and essentially being more sustainable. We'd love to talk to anyone affiliated with advanced engineering or health and social care. We're planting a tree for every business that responds via Business West's partner Ecology, and we'll send you the What 3 Words link. So if you're ever up in Scotland, you can go and see it. We're holding an event on the 26th called Jet Zero, Hydrogen and Skills. There are still spaces available. And I will share a link in the chat to the LSIP webpage where you can see all our upcoming events and opportunities to get involved. That's it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Matt. We have actually included your Jet Zero event in our wrap-up slides at the end. I like the name, by the way. Very good.
Thanks.
Fantastic. Matt, thank you so much for doing an excellent 60-second intro. And Matt's already dropping some notes into the comments there, so you can find out more about that. Okay, I feel like I saw someone else in the comments as well.
We've got there's Andy, there's Tony, and there's Adam still to come. So
right.
Andy's
Okay. Fantastic. All right. Is this our Andy Hawkins?
Yeah, I've sent out an invite.
Fantastic. So Andy, I know sometimes we have a little bit of trouble actually with your internet connection, but here you are. Fantastic. Welcome. How are you doing, Andy?
I am doing great. Nice to see everyone. Great to be back on another great event with the GTSW gang. A lot of you will already know me, but if there's a bunch of newbies on today, I'll give a shout out. My name is Andy Hawkins from Business on Purpose, and I am a B Corp coach that helps businesses go through a 10-step program across 2 or 3 months and help them get through the B Corp process to help them become stronger and better and fitter in terms of people and planet or social and environmental stuff. Anyone interested, give us a shout. There is a Business West lunchtime webinar going on next Tuesday and a Future Economy Network webinar going on next Thursday evening that I'm taking part in. So if you're interested, sign up for either of those. Fantastic. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Andy. And congratulations. I saw your LinkedIn post recently saying how many businesses that you're helping through the B Corp certification process. And kudos to you, because that's wonderful. And we're really glad to have you as part of our network. So
Great.
congratulations,
Nice to be
Andy.
here. Thanks, Anne.
Cheerio. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thanks, Andy. Okay, fantastic. Right, we have lots of 60-second intros today. Sometimes we don't have any, and like today we've got loads. So let's welcome Tony to the screen. Welcome, Tony.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. Yeah, I'll keep this brief because I don't want to keep everyone waiting. We know we've got some good talks coming. But I am from Avant, which is a freshly formed tech-focused cooperative. We currently have 3 members, all who are sort of taking career breaks and decided to dedicate our working lives to something we believe in with purpose and to do a little differently in the form of a cooperative. So we have skills in software systems, infrastructure as code, cloud migration, digital transformation, DevOps, loads of tech stuff, and also some planning, monitoring, evaluation, and learning, which is PEML. So yeah, we're a collective of professionals wanting to work in climate and help mission-aligned projects and programs. And yeah, we're just announcing ourselves. I'll put our link in our website there. And if anyone needs help with the project, we're happy to help.
Fantastic, Tony. Am I right in thinking I've seen you in Climate Action Tech recently?
You have? Yeah.
I thought I had. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I thought I might have seen you in there. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Tony, please do use the comments section to let people know how they can find out more. And yeah, keep in contact.
Well, thank you very much.
Brilliant. It's a pleasure. Thank you for joining us today. It's really nice to have you. Thank you. Okay, wonderful. Right, Adam, welcome to Green Tech Southwest. It's great to have you on the doing a 60-second intro with us today. Over to you, please. What have you got to tell us about?
Thanks very much. I won't stand up because we're not in person, so I'll stay seated given I'm at home. Just wanted to introduce myself. I've listened a couple of times and just want to say hello. So I work for Mercia, so we're a venture capital investor. Recently opened our offices in Engine Shed in Bristol, and you know, we invest across a whole range of different sectors. We invest from seed to Series B, check sizes of $500,000 up to sort of 5 million. We look at all sorts of different sectors, but personally, I'm interested in climate tech and clean tech. So looking to speak to entrepreneurs, typically who've got a little way down the line, so started generating some revenue. But I'm also open to speaking to people at earlier stages as well. So if anyone wants to get in contact with me and have a chat, I've seen a couple of comments for local businesses, but I'll provide my contact details. And if anyone wants to continue the conversation, then please do reach out. And that's all from me.
Wonderful. A very eloquent 60-second pitch, Adam. Thank you so much. It's lovely to meet you. And thank you for joining us at Green Tech Southwest today.
Great.
Fantastic. Okay, so last up is one of our regulars, Chris, over from Cambridge way. Yes. So a regular interloper to the Green Tech Southwest community.
Southwest of England, exactly.
Oh, you're very welcome.
I appreciate it.
Over to you.
A little bit Groundhog Day, because I'm actually announcing a meetup that we had last year that fell over due to technical problems. So if any of you are on the original version of that, I apologise for that happening. But we are rerunning the Working in Sustainable Tech meetup next Thursday, 12:30 to 1:30, with the estimable Chris Butterworth talking about green web development, and Tim Chambers, who runs a company that designs green data centers. So I hope anybody interested in those two topics, or generally what it's like to get into a sustainable tech job, would join the meetup. Come along, it's all online. I'll put a link to it once I finish my blurb, but thank you very much. On a personal note, also, my company, my day job is running a company called Racefully, where we encourage people to get more active in their working lives, and I'm very much into active travel and active transport. So this particularly exciting green tech for me to sit and watch as well today. So thank you for putting it together, Green Tech Southwest team. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Chris. I will quickly add your link, your event to our slides as well, because we send those out to everybody. So once you pop it in the comments, I'll pop it in, and we'll mention it again at the end of today's event. Fantastic. All right. Well, whew, that was fantastic, wasn't it? It's wonderful to hear from you all. Really, really nice to know what's going on in the wider Green Tech Southwest community. So thank you to all 6 of you. It was 6, wasn't it? That's maybe a record for us. So also, yeah, cool. Anyway, right, that means that we are running a little bit behind, but that's okay. We plan for these things. We better crack on with the talk, I think. So now for our main event. Mike, I'm going to hand over to you, and you are going to introduce our fantastic speakers, Tom and Sebastien, today. So bye from me for now.
Thanks very much, Hannah. Hi, everyone. And yeah, welcome to Green Tech Southwest. And yeah, welcome to you, Tom. Tom Williams from Voi. We're really delighted to have someone from Voi kind of come to this particular topic. I'm sure many of you have used Voi e-scooters. I'm a massive fan of them, use them all the time. So it's really brilliant for you to give up the time and come and tell us about Voi and you know, the problems it's solving from an environmental point of view. So yeah, I'll jump straight over to you, Tom. Just a quick reminder to everyone, do feel free to pop your questions in the Ask a Question section. We are a little bit behind, so we'll probably pick out sort of the 2 or 3 kind of most upvoted questions. So yeah, apologies if we don't get to everyone, but I think everyone's here to see the talk. So it's over to you, Tom.
Great, thanks very much, Mike, and yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be able to be here. I will just share my slides, and then we can get into it. Hopefully, you can see what I'm doing, and I'll be with you shortly. I hope that's up on the screen. I'm going to assume it is and continue.
Yeah, all good, Tom.
Thanks, Mike. So I guess just to introduce myself first for people on the call. Hello, my name is Tom Williams. I am City Success Manager at Voi, which essentially means I oversee our operations in a number of regions in the UK, the west of England, Bristol and Bath being one of them, of course, hence me being here. And then Merseyside and Northamptonshire as well, which is where I'm joining you from today in the lovely Ibis Hotel in Northampton. So I'm here to talk a little bit to you today about what we do at Voi, what our vision is, and what, you know, how we think we're going to go about tackling the problem that we perceive there is around urban transportation. So I think to start with a very simple question. Why is urban transport central to the fight against climate change? So really, this is something that's super central to our mission as a business, this question. And the answer really is the nature of cities. So cities cover 1% of the Earth's surface at present, contain 55% of the global population, and are responsible for 75% of global greenhouse gas emissions as things stand. And that's only likely to increase. So by 2050, that 55% is going to become 70%. And that's going to represent, when you account for population growth, a near doubling of the total population of people who live in cities. So what is the transport dilemma then? So I think really the crux of it is that you have all of these people in a tiny urban area, and they all need to get around. And what we're seeing, or what we have seen historically, is rather than designing our transport systems for the cities that we live in, there's been a bit of a trend of designing cities around use of the car. And you can see that played out in the graph that I've got on the screen here, which tells the story of the tram in the United Kingdom. So the first tram service started, or was launched in 1901 between Shepherd's Bush and Kew in London. And I think by about, I think it was just before the 1920s, there were trams all across London, facilitating 800 million trips annually for Londoners. And then by the 30s, there were over 14,000 tram services in the UK. And from that point, we've seen an incredibly steep decline and car use increase really very significantly. And that's represented a doubling of transport emissions since 1970. So why are we seeing this? And I alluded to it earlier, but it's car obsessed city planning, designing the cities where we live around this 2-ton metal block that we move around in. So what exactly is the car problem? So we all travel around in these big hunks of metal, and we know that a quarter of global CO2 emissions are driven by transport. 45% of that's road transport. 90% of city dwellers in Europe are exposed to unsafe air pollution. And 40% of Europe's population is exposed to noise pollution. We also know that inequality is growing. So the people who are most exposed to those problems tend to be people from lower income backgrounds. And that's increasingly the case. And we also know that congestion is increasing. And I think what's the number down there? UK drivers spending 178 hours on average stuck in traffic, which is always a little frustrating. So really, the problem is that we need to change the way that we're moving. And also, when we look at cars themselves, it's interesting to see that 50% of those trips in cars are single individual trips. So just the driver in the car moving around, which is not a terribly efficient use of space. We also know that most trips are very short. So 60% of trips are under 3 miles long. And then when they aren't being used, cars take up an awful amount of space. And 95% of the time, cars are stationary. And, as we see in this picture here, maybe it's stuck in a traffic jam, but I think more frequently what that statistic refers to is being parked on the side of the road. So what does that lead to? And what it leads to is an image like you have in front of you, which is, I think, an illustration from an Swedish artist called Carl Gillig, where he paints a picture of how we are living in our cities. And what it's trying to draw attention to, I think I probably don't need to explain, but the fact that we don't have democratized and fair use of space in our cities. A massive, massive amount of it is taken up for the use of cars. And in some urban centers around the world, 50% of all of the urban space is taken up by roads and by car parks, which clearly if cars are stationary 95% of the time, and the rest of the time people are not traveling and trying to exist within cities, is not a terribly efficient or fair use of space. So this is why we think that question that I posed in the beginning is so important to the fight against climate change. And it's going to be won or lost in cities because so much of this comes down to urban transportation, and so much of that is tied up with how we move around cities and the use of the car. And I think we think as well, transport decarbonisation will play a key role in that. The other thing that will play a role in it is new regulations, innovation, awareness, and they're all providing solutions at the moment. And I think we at Voi feel that we can be a small part of that solution. So we've seen since micromobility since 2018 grow exponentially, but particularly within that, for one reason or another, scooters are incredibly, incredibly popular. So you can see the graph on the left-hand side compares shared e-bikes with e-scooters over a period of time after launch of a trial scheme in Paris. They weren't launched at the same time, which is why the line's on the same length. But you can see that the rate of adoption there for e-scooters is 4 times higher, I think if you take the average over the line, than the rate of adoption of shared e-bikes. And that's not to say that, that's not to come here and bash e-bikes. I'm a personal massive fan of them. I manage a couple of operations in the UK for Voi that we have e-bikes in, for example. And I think that it's something that we're going to be looking into more as a business in general. But this is trying to have a pragmatic conversation about how to drive drastic change in user behavior. And we know that we can do that with e-scooters in the UK. And Bristol and the west of England in particular has seen huge adoption over a really short space of time. And I'm sure if you've been out and about in Bristol, you'll have seen that yourself. So yeah, I mean, we feel like e-scooters can be central. Well, not central. I mean, realistically, we're playing a role in that shift towards decarbonising mobility and providing other solutions. But it's worth saying shared scooters and micromobility in general aren't sustainable by default. That you can't take them out and operate them, willy-nilly and just think they're going to change the world. It's simply not the case. And these are a couple of headlines from a year or two ago that say as much. So shared scooters barely last a month, but that could change. And that hints at some of the issues that we're grappling with as a business, or have been grappling with, around how to make our operation more sustainable. And that's something that we're proud to have led the charge with, or towards, in terms of carbon neutral operations in micromobility, because it is so central to this whole vision that we're painting out. If we can't, if we're talking the talk, but we're not walking the walk, it's a bit of a fruitless endeavor. So there are 3 steps principally that we followed towards climate neutrality. One is measuring emissions. So we've conducted a life cycle assessment on our operations, and the reason we've done that is we can't improve something that we don't understand. So really, that first step is developing that understanding. 2 is using that understanding to develop strategies to reduce our emissions, and then 3rd is where we do have remaining emissions currently in our operation, we'll offset them. So we use something like carbon credits, and this is where we are at the moment with our decarbonisation of our operation. So what do I mean by life cycle emissions? So this is something that's important to paint out, is that the vast majority of emissions from an e-scooter operation do not come from the actual use and servicing of the e-scooter out in the field. And we know that we work with an external consultancy to build a picture of our emissions. And it's painted out here on the right-hand side, where you see 61% of the life cycle emissions of an e-scooter come from the production process, then transport from where we're manufacturing to the particular market, then only 11% of it in the use and distribution of the scooters, and then we have some in maintenance, and then we recycle the scooter at the end of its life. So that really highlights 2 key areas that we've really been focusing on as a business in terms of improving the state of our emissions. And that's 1, improving the lifespan of a scooter. So longer lasting vehicles and recycling those vehicles at the end of their life mean that 61% of the emissions from production is spread out over a much longer period of time, which therefore has a massive impact on our emissions as a business. And then 2 is zero emission operations. So using electric vehicles, using renewable energy, and then just really driving for efficiency in any way that we can, to ensure that we're kind of getting the most bang for our buck out of what we're doing out there on the streets. So to touch on that first point first, what have we been doing to increase lifespan? So the first generation of scooters that we launched was a consumer grade scooter. It didn't last very long. It wasn't built for the job. It wasn't built for the heavy use of a shared service. It lasted about a year. But through increasing the increasing the sturdiness of the frame of the vehicle, using swappable batteries, putting tamper-proof technology on the scooter, improving the Internet of Things module that tells us where the scooter is, we've managed to increase that lifespan over the 4 subsequent models of scooter up to a expected lifespan of 5 years. And that has been a massive factor in improving or reducing the emissions from our operations. And then in terms of the zero emission operations point, it's really been around using cargo bikes where we can, using electric vans, and powering our facilities, the warehouses that we operate out of, with renewable energy. So we've managed to, within the last 15 months, reduce our CO2 emissions by 75% through all of the things we're talking about, which I think we are super proud of as a business, but we know there's scope to go further. We've reached neutrality, but I think we want to get to a place where we're carbon positive as a business. So there are a few things we're going to look at to do that. One is local sourcing of batteries. So bringing battery production to Europe is going to be a big factor of tackling that transport part of the supply chain, the emissions part of the supply chain, to sustainable production and low carbon vehicles, so increasing that rate of recycled material in the vehicle, and then increasing modal shift as well, so continuing to focus on getting people out of their cars. And that's how we're going to try and drive towards being climate positive by 2030. That's the goal. How can cities look at tomorrow? So I've talked a lot about democratization of space, but just to paint a picture, we've done some renderings of some cities that we operate in across Europe, and what they might look like. So we can see here, a lot of space taken up by cars, but what if we were to create shared use space with room for infrastructure, room for people to just go out and enjoy their lives a bit more. So here's Marseille, and we've put in a cycle lane, put in infrastructure, reduce the amount of space that's taken up by cars. We're all of a sudden, as well as just being out there and being a green operation, we're starting to change the way that people exist within cities. And that's really the vision. We have people moving around in these 2-ton metal boxes. And we believe truly that micromobility can play a role in changing that. We want to create environments that are free from noise, free from pollution, and ultimately get towards that vision, which is creating cities made for living. So that's everything from me today. So thank you very, very much for having me, and look forward to answering any questions that you might have at the end.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Tom. That was absolutely brilliant. Yeah, great stuff. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for taking us through that. And it's incredible to see the impact that it's made already, just in the Southwest, and those images of cities and what they could look like as well. Absolutely brilliant. So yeah, big round of applause in the comments. If you can find any scooter emojis, feel free to lob them in there as well. Obviously we've had a lot of questions we thought we would for this one, so yeah, keep them coming, and obviously we'll try and get through a few if we can at the end. But yeah, thanks very much again, Tom, and we'll hear from you in about 10-15 minutes time.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mike.
Right, I'm just going to invite Sebastien to the screen. Okay, Sebastien, you should be getting an invite around about now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Great stuff. Thanks very much for joining us, Sebastien.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being with you guys.
Great stuff. And yeah, we were introduced via Future League Network, so yeah, I'll be sure to thank them. I'm down at the hub tomorrow. But yeah, great to have you with us. And yeah, I've been playing with the app for a little while, but I'll let you explain more. So it's over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me share my screen, make sure it's also working. And right, so I'm assuming everyone is seeing that.
Yeah, that's all good.
Okay, perfect. So a little bit of an introduction about myself. My name is Sebastien Thomas. As you can see, I'm the commercial director at TripShift, and that means essentially that I'm working with businesses, engaging with them, trying to understand their needs and requirements, and adjusting our strategy according to that. So TripShift, we are an online automated CO2 tracking platform focused on transport. Now, as Tom, very well explained in detail, transport plays a huge role if we are going to tackle climate change. A lot of people don't realize to what extent actually wheels on the roads takes in terms of carbon emissions when it comes to transport, and that is about 25% of total global emissions. So I won't go too much into detail because Tom talked about that quite a lot already. So I think we're all well versed in that. So our shift also is trying to help not only people, but businesses and communities to decarbonize their transport operations. Now, we've seen with COP26, there's been a focus on transport emissions a lot more than before. And we can see as well an increase, as again Tom mentioned, that there's going to be more and more demands in terms of legislation that is going to be brought in. Rishi Sunak has already announced that in the UK there will be obligations to disclose carbon emissions. And we can see already a trend in European countries such as Germany and France, where it is already a legal requirement for companies to disclose their transport emissions. And even in Germany, there already is a tax on carbon. So we also see taxes coming eventually in the UK. And this is also part of how we want to help businesses to prepare for the eventuality of when this will come. So how can we help? We were trying to think, the transport obviously is a crucial part. We've decided to focus on transport because we also find there's a lot of solutions already at hand, while in other sectors might be, still a lot of research is needed. So we figured, how can we, as a company, help both people, individuals, and businesses to answer this challenge? So we really want to help take carbon out of both travel and transport by inspiring people to move better. Now, the way we do that is trying to help people put either, again, personal ambitions or strategies into action. So how do we get people thinking about, well, I would like to, reduce my carbon emissions when it comes to transport. How do I do that? That is really what our mission is, both for individuals and businesses. And again, we also, we want to set ourselves quite ambitious goals because it is a big challenge. So for a big challenge, we want to set an ambitious vision and goal. And that for that, we would like to, for obviously become one of the main aims for tracking and helping people decarbonize their transport, first understanding carbon footprint. If we've got to understand it, we can't really tackle it. And our vision is, as you can see, to reduce transport-related carbon emissions by at least 1 million tons per year. So how do we do that? So we came up with the TripShift platform, and it's in two parts. One is an application that you download on your phone. It's free. Both are available on iOS, and our beta version is available on Android as well, and a dashboard. The application is accessible to everyone, as I just mentioned, and it is automated. Now, when I mean automated, and I'll go a little bit more in detail on that, it means that it is going to detect your mode of transport without you having to manually input that mode of transport and when you took it. So, for example, a lot of the carbon trackers at the moment are quite manual in terms of you always have to input what mode of transport you've been using and how long you've been using it in terms of distance. And then the calculation of your CO2 is automatic. What we've managed to do is automate that entire process. Because one of the things we found was one of the main obstacles for people to actually take action was that sort of, if you could say, the administrative part of really manually putting in the data. A lot of people are put off by that. They don't have the time or they forget. So we wanted to really simplify that process because we think that the data is out there. It's just a question really of collecting it and compiling it in a way that makes sense to both an individual and in an organization. And a lot of that comes to simplifying processes. So by simplifying the process, we can help you get a better understanding of your carbon footprint. And then once you've got a clear understanding, we can help you reduce that. Now, moving on to the dashboard. So we are a little bit more, put a bit of focus on businesses because we think businesses and private enterprises obviously play a huge factor in reducing the transport. And, companies are made of individuals and people just like you and me. And a lot of it is going to come on how do they change not only their travel when it comes to their work, but also the commute, going back and forth. Now, as we come out of lockdown, more and more people are going to be commuting back to work. And now we see it as, in a way, a silver lining is that it's a perfect time to really to help people change how they commute to work and then how they also eventually travel. So the dashboard works that we use the application as a data collecting tool. So a company will have access to the app, have it downloaded by its employees, and we use that as a data collecting tool. That allows, again, all automated, so there's no manual input needed either by the employee or the administrator of the dashboard. That is going to allow the company to collect all its data with also, quite importantly, no gaps in the data. Because as I mentioned, there's a lot of human factor involved when you manually input. So we can close those blind spots when it comes to maybe someone just forgets to put their data. But also it's going to give you a lot more accurate data. because it's not just averages, and I'll explain that in a second, but the application actually tracks your location, so therefore gives a very accurate data of your carbon emissions. We then highlight areas of possible improvement. So for example, if we see that 5 of your employees are commuting to work on the same road, the same route, we highlight that area in a heat map and say, look, you've got 5 employees who are using the same road. If you could cluster those journeys into either car share, or if you could encourage people to take public transport, or changing to electric vehicles, for example, you would reduce the emissions of those trips by X amount. And then eventually, again, going back to upcoming taxes, you would be reducing your taxes by X amount. And this is quite important also, not only, a lot of people think that it's, big companies that are going to, are the main polluters, but a huge amount of emissions comes from middle-sized companies and SMEs as well. And a lot of the time we found that SMEs feel that they've been quite left out of the conversation when it comes to helping them and the operational, reducing the operational footprint. So we also want to engage with them and help them prepare so that they don't get hit as hard when eventually those taxes come. So we want to include everyone in the conversation. A big part of our platform is accessibility, both on an individual level and on an organization/company level. So we want this to be sort of a CO2 tracker for everyone, for the rest of us, if you will. And then quite importantly, once you've got a good idea of your footprint and you've got, and we help you reduce them, is reporting. How do you tell your story? How do you show your progress? Transparency. More and more investors, more and more customers are requiring and putting pressure on companies that they purchase to show transparency, show disclosure, to show that they are doing an effort. So not only reporting for, as I mentioned, legislation purposes and auditing purposes, but also for companies to showcase that they are doing an effort, they are measuring their emissions, and then they are doing that extra step to reducing their transport emissions. Now, when it comes to the app, so as I mentioned, the app is automated in the sense that you open it, leave it in the background, and the magic is, again, you do not need to manually input any form of data. So the way that works is we use technology that is already existing in your phone, and we ask you to authorize the application to track you. All the data is, of course, anonymized, very much in the same way the NHS, your NHS data is anonymized. So all that is safe and secure. We're not interested in personal data. We're just helping you understand how you move and how we can help you move better. I'll show you a couple of screenshots in a second, just to give you a little bit of a teaser, but of course I'm going to encourage everyone to download the application to get a full run through. But this is essentially what our looks like visually. So on the left, you're going to have your what we call our footprint page. This is a landing page. And this is where you're going to see your daily commute, your daily carbon footprint. And then, as you can see, and I'll explain this a little bit in detail, you can have an environment in the background, which is going to interact according to your levels of emission. The middle screen is what we call the movement page. And here is really sort of more a data-driven kind of page. Here we really want you to see your data, and they're classified in the most emitting mode of transport. And here again, we want you to be able to compare and see what does your carbon footprint look like. And the reason for this is a lot of people, when we ask them, how do you visualize or understand, for example, 1 kilo of carbon? A lot of people will think of maybe, in the first person, often they don't know. They think about it and they say, well, probably, a kilo of coal or a balloon are filled with gas. What we're trying to do here is actually help you put into context, what does that kilo of carbon look like? So if every day my commute is the same, and I can see that my commute is, for example, 250 grams of carbon, that helps me put into context what that kilo looks like and what does good look like for me. How can I improve my emissions? And also how I can see and compare also how drastically different, for example, it is to take a train or a car. What we then do as well is help you visualize that data. So if you look on the right, on the last screen, that is our movement page. And here's where you can see the app in action. So there you can really see your mode of transport, how the app has been tracking you. And quite importantly, here is the page where, one, you can make changes to the mode of transport. So for example, at the moment, this is our first version of the application. So we cannot automatically detect if you are in an electric vehicle, for example. What you can do is set your default vehicle as an electric vehicle. We've got all the numbers in the application available. But also, if, for example, you take a taxi, which is sometimes often Ubers, for example, are electric or hybrid, you can then tap on the icon of the mode of transport and then change the mode of transport. So if, for example, if the application detected it was a car, you could change it to an electric car or hybrid car. Now, this is really trying to help people understand their data. What does better look like for me? What does my carbon footprint look like for me? Where are the areas I see drastic changes, for example, from cars to trains? What we then do is focus on nudging people in the right direction. So we think that data is fantastic, technology is great, but if it doesn't help us to change our behavior, we're not going to go very far. So the way the application is designed is actually to help you change your modes of transport by understanding. Now, the way we do that is we have different factors. So for example, if I go back, as I mentioned, the screen on the left with the environment is going to change according to your modes of transport. The more I emit, the more I will have clouds in the background. The trees will be a bit more sparse. However, as I reduce my transport emissions, I'm going to be regenerating that environment. And that, again, is to give a sense of, my individual actions do have a direct impact on my surrounding and on the specific environment. So giving also that sense of control, because often we think that, what are my individual actions going to do when it comes to tackling climate change? It's too small. It's just a drop in a giant ocean. This is, again, to show that your actions do matter and do have an impact. What we also do is we have leaderboards, so you can have some friendly competition between everyone who's using the application nationwide, as well as creating your own leaderboards with your personal friends. And we've got two kinds of leaderboards. One is based on your average carbon emissions per kilometer, and one is what we call TripShift points. TripShift points are quite important because we also recognize that some people are going to emit, some people maybe live in the countryside, they do need to take their car to go to where they need to go. So TripShift points is important because it allows us also to give also a bit of fair competition in terms of, if I'm lucky enough to cycle to work every day because I live close to my work, but one of my colleagues has to commute every day and take the train. So how can he compete with someone like me? And this is where TripShift points come into play, because that allows him to get points every time he reduces his emissions, and also depending on interactions with the application. Finally, what we do again is trying to really help people to sort of do that commitment, do that journey, is giving a link to solution providers. So we are a carbon calculating platform. We can help you track and understand your carbon footprint. But we are not a solution provider. So what we do in the Move Better page, if you swipe that, where it says Move Better, if you swipe it up, you're going to get suggestions on how you can reduce your carbon footprint based on that data of your day. So for example, if I drove to Scotland, my application would suggest that I could take a train, and that would be reducing my emissions quite drastically. If I am driving around in London, the application is going to suggest public transport. So it detects all the nodes of public transport are public. We've got those embedded in the application, and it will suggest my local transport provider, which is the Go Ahead Group. So these are ways in which we really try and nudge people in as much as possible in the right directions and help them change behavior. Because again, there are a lot of solutions out there, but it's often quite difficult to want to choose the right one or want to choose one in general, because there's so many. But even though there's so many, it's not always easy to find them. So we are creating a network and a community of lots of different companies that are going to then provide these solutions on how you can reduce your emissions, both on an individual level and on a business level. So both for individuals and for B2B. So yes, in a nutshell, that is who we are. What is we do? I'd encourage obviously everyone to download the app. It's for free. You can all you have to do is download it, register an account, and you can start playing around with it. We have already started working with businesses. We're helping businesses track and understand their carbon footprints. But yeah, as a summary, as was mentioned before, transport is going to play a huge role if we're going to be successful in tackling climate change. We need to drastically and quite quickly decarbonize our transport. Solutions are there. We really believe it's a question of understanding the data, getting a good view of the data, and changing our behavior. And thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Sebastien. That was a really nice talk, and what a cool product. I'm sure everyone will agree. If we can have some applause for Sebastien in the comments, that'd be great. Yeah, just really look forward to using the full version on Android. I've got it on beta at the moment, and it's really interesting. So yeah, definitely solves the problem. So yeah, thank you very much for taking us through that, and we wish you all the success with obviously taking that further. So brilliant. I'm just going to invite Tom to the screen, and we've got a few questions as Hannah suggested. I think we'll try and do sort of 3 each if we can, and then it will be over to Hannah to wrap up the event, and we'll see how we go from there. Great stuff. Welcome back, Tom. Cool.
Great to be back.
So thank you. Cool. So thank you for everyone who has upvoted the questions. I'll start with the most popular one, firstly for Tom. So for Tom, your stats suggest numbers of car journeys replaced, which I think I spotted that one as well. Please expand on how you get to these numbers. In Paris, data suggests scooters replace walking and cycling more than car journeys, potentially creating negative health impacts. That's from Diana.
Great, thanks for the question, Diana. So to touch on the first part of that question, which is how do we measure the number of trips that we replace? And I think the very simple answer to that question is we ask our users at the end of the trips that they take occasionally, what mode of transport would you have taken if not e-scooters? And that builds a picture for us on essentially what is the modal shift, what is the shift towards e-scooters, and what mode of transport was it from? We've done this, like I said, at the end of rides, and then we've been doing it biannually as well, just to come back and check in with people again, see how they are getting on. You might say naturally and very fairly, I don't believe you, you're marking your own homework. And so there are a number of kind of independent evaluations going on at the moment. So first, with in partnership with the West of England Combined Authority, we're doing just kicking off some monitoring and evaluation work that's going to look back over the period of the trial since launch and come to their own conclusions. And then equally, the Department for Transport is looking at it as well. But the numbers that we've seen from those groups seem to, well, certainly the Department of Transport, are not a world away from our numbers, which are, for your information, 39% shift in Bristol and South Gloucestershire away from cars towards scooters, 29% in Bath. There are active travel considerations. That's absolutely true. At the moment in Bristol and South Gloucestershire, we see it's slightly more movement away from inactive travel modes. So not the same thing that you might have seen in Paris. But I think that's also likely to change, because when we started the trial, it's a bit of a novelty, lots of trips for leisure, fewer people using it for regular journeys. And as this mode of transport starts to get adopted more and more, I think we'll see that start to change. Great. I hope that answers the question.
Great stuff. Thanks very much for that, Tom. And great to hear those stats on the adoption and the replacement of cars as well. So thank you for that. Great stuff. We've got a question for Sebastien next. So it's shifting around a little bit here. Just bear with me. So Sebastien, from Ellen, do you have an idea of how much CO2 you have helped reduce through people using your app so far?
So at the moment, not yet, because we've just launched our beta version, and of the Android. Our iOS has been used, but mainly internally in our company, and we have just really have given access to companies to our dashboard. So we've just started this year with companies by helping them really first of all understand and how to use the application, how to use the technology. So at the moment we do not know yet, but just because we are just very early stages, and we've just started with our first early adopters community. But the way it will work is that every month we have a review, and we understand, we look at the data, and once we get into obviously a certain amount of critical mass of data, then we can really see how the application is working in terms of how many people behave. And we can also look at, also quite importantly, what are the triggers? What is working? What is not working? Is it because people are doing their own homework? Is it because people are going through our affiliate partners, our B2B solution providers? Both for individuals and businesses. We obviously we'll have more clarity with businesses and councils as well, because that is also one of the aspects we're doing. We're talking with councils who are looking to use the application, spreading it, sort of advertising it, so they can see and track modes of transport to help them reduce carbon footprints of councils by seeing, if I've got a new bus lane I must put, where are the gaps for public transport? Where is the most amount? Where are the most people going in personal cars? And also when it comes to, for example, installing new charge points for electric vehicles, where is going to be the most efficient place to put those electric charge points to then reduce it? Those are all things that we will be able to track. And quite importantly, again, show transparency, because our point as well is just not just talk the talk, but also walk the walk. So we also want to keep our product accountable and make sure that it's working, and tweak it and change it where it's not, and to make sure that we are helping reduce carbon emissions.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you very much for that. And great to hear about the other uses for the app as well, as you mentioned, with the charge points as well. So great stuff. So a question from Tim. For Tom, there's a huge design space between scooters and cars. What's the future for electric vehicles for 2 to 3 people with some weatherproofing? For example, rickshaws and tuk-tuks, etc.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool idea, and thanks for the question. I think really the answer here is that there's an awful lot of change at the moment in the micromobility shared use space around vehicles and innovation in vehicles, and I think we're likely to see things shift a fair amount over the coming years. So at the moment, for example, larger multimodal, we call them, because we offer more than scooters, but our competitors as well, operators are shifting more towards incorporating e-bikes into their offerings, where they were heavily scooter focused previously. We've also seen the introduction of electric mopeds being offered on a shared use basis by some operators. So I think that will continue to evolve, and it's all happening incredibly fast. So could I see an electric tuk-tuk zipping around at some point in the near future? I would absolutely not like to bet against that happening at some point. So yeah, I think there's every possibility that with the rate of evolution that this industry is seeing, that we'll see something like that in the near future.
Fantastic. Yeah, electric rickshaws. That sounds absolutely brilliant. Great stuff. Thanks for that. Question from Nina for Sebastien. Has there been any barriers with employers not wishing to share their commute journey with employers? If so, how best to overcome, and also what is the payment structure?
Well, the first answer is, at the moment, no. There is concern about data privacy, obviously. This was the first thing that we looked at. As soon as we said, okay, we're going to track people with an application, the first thing we really made sure was that we were covered in terms of data privacy, and we weren't breaching any rules. The way that works, again, as I mentioned in the presentation, is that all private data is anonymized. So we get data bursts from the application. That's also the way we do, so we don't drain your phone, the battery of your phone. We take the application is going to pin your locations every 15 seconds, and then it's going to send it to the backend, where all the calculations are done and sent back. As soon as we get in the backend a cluster of data, it's anonymized. So that's already much in the same way that your NHS information is anonymized. What we also do then is we add layers to that. So first of all, nothing is done internally in terms of the app and stored in the app or the dashboard. So even if, for example, someone hacks your phone or hacks your computer and has access to your app and your dashboard, they will not have access to our data pool. That's in the back end, and it's got several different layers of firewalls to ensure that's secure. What we also do is we can put barriers or fencing around the tracking. So for example, if we know that you're going to be working from 9 to 5, we can set sort of time fencing so that the data that is going to only start being collected from 9 to 5, or whichever time frame you want. What we also do is geofencing. So for example, if you don't want to be tracked within a certain geographical area, that's also fenced off, as you will only the data will only start being collected once you enter that specific and designated geographical area. And on top of that, when we see, for example, that your phone is when you haven't moved for 4 hours between midnight and 4 in the morning, we're going to assume that is your residence. So what the application does is automatically create a sort of a bubble around that. I think it's around 80 to 100 meter radius from that point. And any data that is within that point is not going to be collected, because we recognize that is most likely going to be your residence or your home. We're not interested to know that. We don't need to know that. We're just looking again at how you move, not where you sleep. So that is again cancelled out. We don't collect that. The first conversation we have is always about data privacy and how we anonymize the data. It's obviously a very important point, and it's a very fair point that comes up very quickly. So far, we haven't met much resistance in terms of, because of the nature of what we're doing, and we're trying to, first of all, collect carbon emissions and help reduce carbon emissions to fight climate change. Most people are on board with that. Most people actually quite like the fact that the companies are actively engaging with solutions that are going to help them and understand not only their commute to work, but a lot of people actually say, well, because at the moment, obviously, companies are going to ask employees to register on the dashboard create a profile with their professional emails. A lot of people asking us, can I have 2 profiles? Can I both track my personal, but obviously separate my data from my professional one? At the moment, we don't have a direct solution for that. You can obviously create 2 different kind of profiles, 2 different emails, but you will still have to switch between emails. So we're looking in the future for future developments of the app, if we could have an easy way for you to switch between your professional and your work email. Your professional and your personal email.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that question, Nina. Thanks for that, Sebastien. So yeah, final question for you, Tom. If we can keep the answers as succinct as we can, without sort of taking out too much of the important info. So for Tom, e-scooters, this is from Mary Stevens, e-scooters are only currently licensed for use on roads, not cycle paths. What are the infrastructure changes that you'd like to see that would specifically support a shift from cars to e-scooters, brackets not risking displacing bikes? Not convinced that putting e-scooters in bike lanes is the right answer for now.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And I think there's been some conversation in the comments there. So just to clarify, I think Jonathan's pointed out e-scooters can be ridden on public land, so anywhere that cycles are permitted. So that would include cycle lanes, but there are specific areas. I think the one that's mentioned here is the Bristol and Bath Railway Path. That we don't cover, and the reason for that is because it's managed by an organisation called Sustrans, who manage the national cycle network. So we don't have an agreement with them. unfortunately. So what would I like to see very, very, very quickly? More road space segregated for use of micromobility, so segregated cycle paths. I think that we're seeing more of that now, but I think it has to happen on a much wider scale if we're going to see the kind of adoption we'd like to. And then some more thinking around kind of parking models is probably what I would like to see. So at the moment, we park on the pavement. Again, that's an agreement that's reached with the council, but investigating other models for parking on street, for example, and taking some of that space that's used for cars that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, great stuff. I don't think anyone would disagree with that, and hopefully that happens. So thanks for that question, Mary. And the final question for yourself, Sebastien. Again, really good one from Nina, so I'll go with this one. Would the data from TripShift be available on a city scale to help plan infrastructure?
Yes, so on the long term, that is one of the solutions that we are providing. Again, we've been talking to companies that are already tracking on a sort of larger scale, but they're quite interested in us because we do very, in a way, micro tracking. We've been also talking to quite a few councils, as I mentioned, who are interested to understand how people are moving around, to better plan where they put, new bus routes, parking lanes for bicycles, and electric charge points, but also infrastructure companies, people who are who are both doing massive public infrastructure projects, such as installing new tram lines, new metros. They're keen to, for example, use the application before they start a project to really understand how people are moving, what modes of transport they're using. Do they see a shift over time? Because obviously those projects are quite long in terms of timescale. Is there a shift to a specific mode of transport? How can they plan to meet those shifts, and not just, if you build something and suddenly you realize that, it's become a little bit obsolete because people have changed the way of moving. So that is, yes, absolutely. Again, obviously everything anonymized, as I mentioned, but yes, that is something that we are definitely in talks with for the long term with both infrastructure planners, councils, etc.
That's brilliant. Yeah, thank you very much for that as well. So, yeah, well done both of you. Some tricky ones there. Just going to just say thank you again for the talks today, and I appreciate that some people are obviously having to get back to work, but yeah, we're really grateful for you fielding the questions as well. I'm just going to invite Hannah back onto the screen. Here we go. Hi, Hannah. Great. So over to you, Hannah, to wrap up the event. And yeah, I'm not sure. Are we going to carry on with questions, or should we sort of drop those over via email? Do you feel?
I think that's a question I would put to Tom and Sebastien, because there's a lot. And we could be here for like hours, and we have to think about screen fatigue and, people's mental health of staring at a screen all the time. So Sebastien and Tom, I would suggest that we would put some of those across to you on email. If you have time and the inclination to reply to them, that would be great. Or we could arrange to video you replying and make that available to people. So perhaps we can take that offline. But yeah, I'm feeling that
sounds perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. feels like enough screen time, I think. We're getting to that point. Okay. Well, so I am here to bookend today's session, and to say a huge thank you to Tom and Sebastien for giving us your time today and sharing your knowledge, and also sharing your enthusiasm for finding solutions to tackle the climate crisis. We've had loads of people join us today. We've had loads of feedback. Hopefully you've been seeing the comments too. There's loads of people saying at the moment, thank you so much for coming along. And we really appreciate it. So big round of applause to you. Thank you both. Keep in touch, and we will do our best to continue to amplify your great work and to let people know about what's happening in the world of TripShift and what's happening in the world of Voi and e-scooters, of which people are both very interested to know more about. So thank you both. We will just any final words from... Oh, no, Sebastian's gone. Tom's gone. All right. We're wrapping up. Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you, Tom and Sebastien. I'm going to share just a couple of quick slides just to round off today's event. So we heard two great talks from Tom and Sebastien today. As we've mentioned a few times, Ellen will be collating all the resources shared today, and we'll be making those available on our website, greentechsouthwest.org, hopefully later in the day. We hope you've really enjoyed today's session. Ecology has actually been mentioned a couple of times in today's proceedings. We also have our own forest, and we featured ecology back in November 2020, I think. In fact, a lot of things that we highlighted back in November 2020 have come up today: Sustrans, car share, and ecology. Anyway, if you'd like to say thank you or show your appreciation for today's session in any way, you're very welcome to plant some trees in our forest. No pressure. These events are free and always will be free, but we had some feedback that people would like a way of kind of showing their appreciation in a way like this, and we've just popped a link into the comments so you can have a look at our forest if you want to. I'm just going to rattle through a couple of interesting events. These events are meant to build a wider community around Green Tech Southwest, not just focusing on our own community, but looking wider. We mentioned Future Leap Network, also known as Future Economy Network, earlier today. They are one of the largest green business networks in the UK, and if you're a business in the UK working on sustainability or taking climate action, we'd highly recommend you check them out. They've got loads of events coming up. I picked out two that look particularly interesting. One on the 3rd of February in the evening between 6 and 8 p.m, using tech and innovation to respond to our sustainability challenges. Felt very relevant to this group. And then on the 3rd of March, something more heartwarming, a wildlife photography exhibition in the evening from 7 till 8:30. But they've got loads of other stuff and definitely worth checking out. We've also mentioned Climate Action Tech a couple of times today as well. Climate Action Tech is a global community of over 5,000 tech workers united in taking action to tackle climate change. I spend a lot of time in that community, chatting to people, meeting people, and finding out what's going on and asking questions. And that community is open to all. There's a great Slack community where you can chat. They also run their own events, which tend to be very personal and very interesting spaces to chat and meet people. And then, of course, there's also Branch Magazine, which we featured in September of 2021, so just last year, and is a really interesting source of information about creating a sustainable internet. A couple of other events that we thought we'd signpost folks to this afternoon. So basically, if you've got free time next week, it turns out that our events are Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday of next week on this slide. Just happened to work out that way. So I'll be running an event with Jerry McGovern next week, all about minimising your organisation's digital footprint. That's run by the Bristol Green Capital Partnership, and that's on Tuesday. Matt Tudge, who did a 60-second intro at the beginning, mentioned the Jet Zero Hydrogen and Skills event. So that's on Wednesday. And Chris Pontin, who also did a 60-second intro, mentioned the Green Web Development and Sustainable Data Centres event that he's running on Thursday. So there's lots of great stuff going on. Our next event, we are so chuffed to have Vanita Greenwood joining us from Whole Grain Digital, and Vanita's going to be talking about zero waste web design. So Vanita is co-founder of Whole Grain Digital, and they are the organisation behind the website Carbon Calculator tool, and also a super cool toolkit called the Digital Declutter Toolkit. So Vanita will be a fantastic font of knowledge all about zero waste web design, and we can't wait to have her join us on February the 22nd. That's a Tuesday. So just the last few bits from me. We're always on the lookout for volunteers. We've got Joe Mawson, who, Joe, if you're still with us, thank you so much for your excellent live tweeting game today. I was following your tweets as the event was going on, and you have done a brilliant job. Really great. So thank you, Joe. And we're always looking for other volunteers. If anyone wants to help us with design or social media and event promotion. These events are only good because lots of people come. So, you know, we work really hard to tell people about them. And anyone with any video editing skills as well. We've got some ideas for videos, but we could do with a little bit of help. So if you fancy getting involved, you can email us at greentechsw@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us on Twitter, or you can reach out to us on LinkedIn. So don't be shy, do reach out to us. And if you have any feedback about the event as well, we'd love to hear from you. So there we go, we've wrapped up. Thank you so much. We've had a phenomenal event today. Loads of questions, loads of participation, and loads of 60-second intros. And that's what we like to see. That's why we do these events. So thank you to each and every one of you that came today. For those of you that are still here, I can see some of you are with us to the bitter end. So thank you so much. Thank you for being a part of our community and making today's event what it was. And of course, a massive thank you to Tom and Sebastien as well. So go well, and we hope to see you all again very soon at our next event on February the 22nd. All right, cheers everybody. Bye for now.